Good evening, and thank you for attending. My name is Natalie Sayre. I'll be the moderator for this evening's candidate debate. The Citizens Clean Election Commission is the sponsor for this evening's event. The Clean Elections Act is a campaign finance reform measure initiated by Arizona citizens and passed by voters in 1998. Participation as a clean elections candidate is strictly voluntary. The system provides full funding for qualified candidates who agree to abide by the Clean Elections Act and rules. To qualify for funding, participating candidates must illustrate the support of their constituents by gathering $5 qualifying contributions from registered voters in their legislative district. The candidates agree to adhere to contribution and spending limits and may not accept money from special interest groups. They also agree to participate in these debates. As we move into the debate, we encourage audience questions. If you have questions, please print them clearly on the card given to you when you walked in and hold it up. One of our volunteers will pick up the cards and deliver them to me. We do screen questions for clarity to eliminate duplications, speeches, or personal attacks on candidates. If you need another card, just raise your hand. There is an independent timer who will see that all of the candidates have equal time to answer questions and will tell them when their time is up. Our format this evening will be opening statements, 2 minutes. A quick lightning round, 2 minutes for each general question, 2 minutes to answer candidate-to-candidate questions, and closing statements, 2 minutes each. We ask that you remain polite to all candidates and give them a fair and uninterrupted hearing, no matter how strongly you may agree or disagree with anything that's being said. This means no applause, outburst, or cheers, except now as we introduce the candidates. Mr. Russell W. or Rusty Bowers, candidate for State Representative, District 25, Republican. Ms. Heidi Dawson, candidate for State Representative, District 25, Republican. Mr. Justin Olson, candidate for State Representative, District 25, Republican. Ms. Michelle Udall, candidate for State Representative, District 25, Republican, and Mr. Jerry Walker, candidate for State Representative, District 25, participating in clean elections, Republican. The order in which the candidates will speak has been determined by alphabetical order, by last name, starting with our panel of candidates for the House, and we'll progress from that starting point. The closing order will be determined by reverse alphabetical order by last name. Mr. Bowers, would you please start opening remarks?
And I take it,
You have 2 minutes.
2 minutes. My mother used to say I could say everything I knew in 2 minutes, but my name is Rusty Bowers, fourth generation Arizonan, and I would suppose that the most important thing that I could say is that experience matters, and that I have served under the laws that I helped create a decade and a half ago. And from the time that I was first elected in 1992 to 2001, I received an education as whomever wins this race will receive, like no other. But I have lived that way under those laws. I'm a father, a parent. I'm an educator. I work at the East Valley Institute of Technology. I'm a grandfather now, and with 11 grandchildren, now growing and starting to go through that education arena. That's increasingly important to me that they have not just a decent education, but the best education possible. And I would like to see that education tailored to individual needs rather than a one-size-fits-all, a kind of mandated format that would come down on all children across America. I have deep experience in the environment and in land use, water use, utilities. So that experience matters to citizens across the state. I'm grateful to have a 40-plus year marriage to my wife, Donetta. I was named after her father, kind of an Oriental arrangement, I'm sure, somewhere down the line. And I'm very pleased to be able to run. Again, I feel that there's still things that I can offer to the citizens. And even this fly thinks he likes me. So I appreciate your coming tonight.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Ms. Dawson.
Hi, good evening. My name is Heidi Dawson, and I am a first-generation American. My parents and I immigrated from El Salvador. My mother and my father came here with a student visa, then proceeded to get a job offer and came here with a T1 visa. Brought my brother and I 3 years later when we were 9 years old. We immigrated to California, grew up in California. Then she came to Arizona for a wedding and decided that this was a great place to move and moved the family here over a weekend. While I was a freshman at ASU, I met a wonderful, wonderful man that was in the Army, and Bernard and I got married a year later. We've been married since. We have not been blessed with children, but we have 3 beautiful dogs and a cat that we love, and lots of nieces and nephews. And the reason why I'm running is because I'm a financial advisor and a business owner. The way I see it, through my experience advocating for my industry and my professional association at the Capitol for the last 7 years, I've seen what government can do to stop businesses from growing. In my industry, it takes anywhere from 18 to 24 weeks to hire someone from beginning to end. And that's just regulation. It has nothing to do with the companies. I want to change that. I want to make sure that we grow the economy by allowing business owners to actually grow their businesses and not get in the way. Government should be there to help, not to get in the way of businesses, and that's the reason why I'm running. So I'm very grateful to be able to run and to have the support of my husband and my family to actually do it and hopefully earn your vote.
Thank you, Mr. Olson.
Thank you. It's a pleasure to be here with you this evening. Thank you, Clean Elections Commission, for putting on this event. And it's a real honor to be able to share this forum with these fine candidates here this evening. My name is Justin Olson. I was first elected to represent Mesa voters in the state legislature in 2010. I was very honored to receive their support in 2012 as well. I'm a native of Mesa, was born and raised here in Mesa, 4th generation. And I currently live here in Mesa with my wife and our 7 children. We welcomed our 7th child just last month, and it's been quite an eventful time running a campaign and enjoying a newborn in the household. I'm running for re-election to keep the promises that I made to Mesa voters. When I ran in 2010, we faced a severe budget deficit. And I ran on a promise that I would go back and be a voice for fiscal responsibility at the Capitol, for low taxes, for balanced budgets, for budgets that are balanced without new taxes, without any new debt, and without any new budget gimmicks. And I delivered on those promises. I've been a leader at the legislature on finance issues, on the budget, on taxes, on pro-life issues, on the Second Amendment, on business issues. I've earned the support of reputable folks in politics, such as Senator Jeff Flake, such as Congressman Matt Salmon, such as strong business groups like the Mesa Chamber of Commerce, the Arizona Chamber of Commerce, National Federation of Independent Businesses. But the most important endorsement that I've received is the 2 endorsements that I received from Mesa voters in 2010 and 2012. And I optimistically hope that I will be able to earn your support again in 2014 for this re-election. My name is Justin Olson. Look forward to serving you again and keeping these promises in 2014. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Ms. Udall?
Hi, my name is Michelle Udall, and I'm also running for the House here in LD25. My husband and I are both natives to Mesa and to Arizona, and we are raising 4 children here. Growing up here in Mesa, I was a gymnast, and I absolutely loved gymnastics. I was kind of a daredevil, and I liked to do flips and aerials and all kinds of things on the balance beam. But I wasn't particularly concerned with technique or how consistent I was. And as a result, when I was about 10, I went to a gymnastics meet, and I did my mount and fell off the beam. And I did the next couple things and fell again, and again and again, until I finished the routine with a dismount that I also fell on for my 7th and final fall of that routine. I got a 2.75 out of 10 on that routine, the lowest score I've ever seen at a gymnastics meet, and I was humiliated. But I learned an important lesson. I learned that if you're not prepared, that you won't succeed. And so I went back to the gym. I took ballet to fix my technique. I went back to the basics and to the skills that I needed in order to succeed, and spent years working on them, so that eventually I became a state champion on the balance beam, and it became my best event. The reason I share this story with you is because I learned an important lesson about how important preparation is for excellence and success. And that lesson has carried forward throughout my life. We need that same kind of preparation for our students. We need our students to come out of school prepared to succeed, prepared for excellence. We need that same kind of preparation for our economy to succeed and be excellent, to bring back the jobs and even better jobs than we've had before. And I'm willing to do the hard work. I'm willing to go back and do the work that it takes, and I want to be part of that solution. We need leaders with a vision that not only will work hard to solve the current issues and the problems that we face today, but that will look forward to the future and what can be. And I would like to be part of that solution and part of that vision. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Walker?
My name is Jerry Walker, and I am a candidate also for the House of Representatives in LD25. I'm a newcomer to Arizona. I've only been here 15 years. I spent 28 and a half years of my life in the United States Navy. I was a corpsman, a field medic for the Marine Corps. I'm a master scuba diver. I've been in the ocean 130 feet down with scuba gear, of course, and I was cross-trained in mountain warfare by the U.S. Army in the Alps. I got out of the Navy after 8 years, and I went to college and graduate school and on other educational endeavors. And I completed the requirements for associate and bachelor's degrees in public health, a bachelor's degree in sociology and in psychology, a master's in counseling and psychology, and I like 3 hours now having a master's degree in education. I am concerned about education, and I want a sunset clause also in the state constitution. I would like to make sure that if there's a law that's unnecessary, it gets reviewed and make sure that it still needs to be there, because if we have a law that's unnecessary, we do away with it, it also causes the infrastructure below it to go away, and the infrastructure below it going away will save us tax dollars we can use for other things that are more important than outdated and unnecessary laws. We have 40 million acres of land in Arizona. I've lived here 15 years and have done some survey work on that, and 42% of the land in Arizona is the property of the federal government, not counting the Native American reservations. I was the public health educator for the Gila River Indians for a while, and found that those people are very proud people and love having their home protected, and their semi-autonomous nature is a good thing to have. I don't want to touch their land. I want to make sure that the 42% of Arizona that belongs to the federal government comes under our control, because if it comes under our control, then we will be able to keep the money that is generated from the lease of that land.
In an attempt to lighten the mood for tonight's debate, we're going to do a quick lightning round of this or that. This will allow us to get to know more about the candidates. Please answer with just one word. Mr. Bowers, CNN, Fox News, or MSNBC?
Fox News.
Ms. Dawson, Droid, iPhone, or Windows?
iPhone.
Mr. Olson, Facebook or Twitter?
Facebook. I don't know what Twitter is.
Ms. Udall, Mac or PC?
PC.
And Mr. Walker, Lumberjack, Sun Devil, or Wildcat?
Lumberjack.
Thank you. Now let's move into our debate questions. What will be your top priority if elected? Mr. Bowers, we'll start with you.
Thank you for the question. Having sat on as the Appropriations Chairman in the Senate some years ago, and having delivered a balanced budget without any gimmicks to the citizens of Arizona, and seeing the contortions that it's gone through since, and now facing a $400 million budget structural deficit that's coming the next year, for me, the baseline has to be a strong financial basis for the state that's sound and that we can count on for the citizens going forward, and build confidence in both families and business. And so that would be my first priority, is to establish good budget processes, a fair tax policy, and a sound regulatory environment so we can grow our way into prosperity.
Thank you. Ms. Dawson, same question. What would be your top priority if elected?
It would be actually to try to get out of the way of businesses, whether it is deregulating or unregulating certain areas of the industry. I believe that for many, many years we have issued too many regulations that have just gotten on the way of the entrepreneur in Arizona. We have a chance of being a state that prospers, that we can actually attract companies to come and do business here. We don't do as well as Texas and other states are doing because of our regulations and because of our tax structure for businesses. And I would love to see us reduce that, get out of the way of business owners, and allow us as business owners to prosper and therefore growing the economy and making the state more attractive. And that would help balance our budget. Less amazing as it is, tax cuts actually bring more revenue because businesses grow, people spend more money, there's more employment, and we can bring that down by helping deregulate and get out of the way of businesses.
Thank you. Mr. Olson, same question.
Thank you for this question. You know, I think that the most important decision that the legislature makes each year is how this legislature is going to spend your tax dollars. The legislature spends nearly, it's ranged from $9 billion to over $10 billion of your hard-earned dollars. And that is the essential question that you all send us down to the legislature to make. What are those priorities of the state? Are we going to spend ourselves into a situation where we're compelled to come to you and take more of your hard-earned money? And that's been my priority at the legislature, is fiscal responsibility, to make sure that we don't end up in a budget crisis like we were in 2010 when I first took office. To make sure that we don't make those same mistakes that were made in those years leading up to 2010, that we are responsible with your tax dollars. And now I recently saw a poll that looked at how many people are concerned about the state budget. And I was very excited to see that 3% are worried about the state budget. And that's the way it should be. We should not have to, the regular, everyday person who's going about their daily lives, going to work, working hard to raise their families, should not have to be concerned that their elected officials are not managing their tax dollars appropriately. And that's because of the successes that we've been able to deliver on in the last 4 years. In the last 4 years, we've balanced the budget and we've cut taxes, and the state is growing now. We were able to create more resources for K-12 education. We added over $200 million to our K-12 school system this year, because we were responsible with our tax dollars, and now we're in a situation where we can grow again. Because of the economic development efforts that we made at the legislature, we are now ranked as the #1 state for expected future growth in jobs by Forbes magazine. We have done some great things in the last 4 years. I look forward to continuing those great things for Mesa citizens.
Thank you. Ms. Udall?
Thank you. I would say that the most important thing for me is jobs in the economy. And I think that there are a few different aspects that directly impact jobs in the economy. The first one would be, as has been mentioned, the tax and regulatory environment towards businesses and towards the people of our state. And as Mr. Olson mentioned, Representative Olson mentioned, there have been some great things done in the past few years that have really helped our business environment become more friendly to both new businesses and businesses growing and thriving. And that needs to continue. The second would be education. Businesses that come into our state need work-ready students. They need students that graduate ready to succeed in business. And we have got a lot of work to do in our education system. As a Mesa School Board member, I have been intimately involved in education and have a good idea of what is working and what's not, and some ideas for how we can fix some of those issues. Third would be infrastructure. Recently, in the last few years, a lot of the infrastructure money has been swept for other purposes. And to continue doing that will mean that our infrastructure, our roads, and some of the other infrastructure will continue to break down. And without those, then business cannot thrive. And the fourth would be that we need a more thriving import-export relationship with our neighbor to the south. Some of our neighboring states have a better relationship and do a lot more business with Mexico, and as a result, there's a significant economic impact to their states, and they make a lot of money off of that, and we have the opportunity as a border state to really benefit from a good working relationship with them.
Thank you. Mr. Walker?
Yes, the key that I think about when I think about my goal right now is to have fewer controls over people. I don't think people need to be controlled. That's the reason I'm so interested in education and the educational process. I want people to be taught how to think, not told what to think. I want them to be educated, not indoctrinated. I want you to be able to raise your children the way you see fit, not the way someone else wants you to raise your children and to educate them. I believe that the less control we have over people, the less controls we'll need over people. I'd say that I believe in the concept of individual accountability, individual responsibility, individual achievement, and individual reward. I don't think there's any such thing as corporate reward, because if you have corporate reward, then you take away incentive for people to be productive and to do more and to accomplish more and to achieve higher goals and higher things. The preamble to the Constitution has an interesting word in it: to benefit our posterity. And if we don't benefit our children, our grandchildren, our great-grandchildren, we're not doing anything, because that's the future of not just this nation, but the future of the well-being of the world. And I believe strongly in American exceptional status. I believe that we have been the leaders of the world since World War II and quite a bit before. And I think we need to continue to be the leaders of the world, because if we lead the world and we teach other people how to think and how to fish, then we'll cause them to become more creative, and we'll teach them how to fish so that they can feed themselves and we don't have to do it. Thank you.
Thank you. Next question. What is your position on Common Core, and how do you see it in the educational system? Ms. Dawson, we'll start with you.
Having been a product of two different school systems, one in south of the border and the other one in the United States, I can tell you that Common Core seems to be a dumbed-down version of what we're trying to call standards. I'm not against standards. The problem is we should allow the school boards and the communities themselves to choose what those standards are. Right now, we're having the top-down version of education, which does not help anybody. We are seeing children that are graduating high school that can barely read at a college level, let alone be prepared to enter the workforce. That is not high standards. We need to make sure that we are educating our children so they are ready to go to an employment. And college is not for everybody. You know, my younger brother decided that he was not going to do a 4-year college, so he went to a tech school. He went to EVET, actually, and became an electrician and has had a very great career with that. So we need to allow the parents to be in control of the education and see how it best fits your community, your school board, and not have somebody from Washington, D.C. tell you down to Mesa in District 25 what it is that your children would be educated. I see my niece is starting the school board in the fall. She's just turned 5 and is so excited to go to preschool. And I can tell you, we were looking at the stuff for preschool, and she can already read. So she's going ahead of schedule to school. However, this high standards expect her that she will be capable of reading by grade 3. That is 7 years that we have wasted on education for our children. So I want to leave it to the local control to actually do what is best for your kids.
Thank you. Mr. Olson?
Thank you. This is an important question. I know this is something that weighs heavily on a lot of voters' minds, is whether we should be participating in Common Core or not. And it's an important issue to find out where your soon-to-be elected representatives stand on this issue. And so I want to make it very clear that I do not support Common Core. I think that was the wrong choice for our state, but I do support high standards. I think that we need high standards in our education system, and we need high outcomes. But I don't feel that Common Core is the right way to get there. It's the wrong approach. And for a number of reasons. Number one, I am most concerned with the way that it was implemented. A significant educational reform, curriculum reform, such as Common Core, should have been adopted through a democratic process, through the representatives of the people, whether that be at the school board level or at the state legislature. Common Core was adopted by unelected bureaucrats. And that, to me, gives me pause and gives me concern. In addition, we transitioned from some standards that were high when they were enacted, but when they were enacted, then the legislature, through political pressure from parents, continued to water those standards down. And so the problem or the solution isn't necessarily with simply enacting higher standards. The solution to better educational outcomes lies with more parental involvement, more individual responsibility, more encouraging and enticing of the highest quality educators into our school system through additional resources like what we're doing right now at the state legislature. When we added over $200 million in new resources for our K-12 education system. So these are some of the concerns that I have with Common Core. And least of all, or not least of all, is the cost associated with this. We went from a standardized test that cost about $15 per test to
Thank
something
you.
that cost much, much more.
Thank you. Ms. Udall?
I support high standards and oppose federal intrusion in education policy. I'm on the school board here in Mesa, and I believe that education decisions should be made at a local level. And I have advocated with the National School Board Association for federal legislation that would curb the federal Department of Ed's overreach, some of the overreach that we've seen in the recent years. Having said that, I do support these standards. It's important in trying to figure out why I would support them to understand, first of all, what these standards are and what they are not. So first, this is a 5-hour discussion that I'm going to try and condense into 2 minutes. But Common Core is a set of standards. It's a list of things students should know and be able to do. So for example, a 5th grade math standard is to fluently multiply multi-digit whole numbers using the standard algorithm. An 8th grade reading standard requires students to be able to look at different arguments and claims and figure out whether the reasoning is sound and the evidence is relevant and sufficient. Those are some examples of standards. They in no way dictate what textbooks you need or how students are to be taught. What the standards are not. They're not a federal mandate of what textbooks we use or how we teach. As a member of the school board, I can tell you that we have not been forced to adopt certain textbooks. We have not been forced to use any specific text. And they are not a requirement that any student data be collected. If you read the Common Core itself, you will find that the only mentions of data in the entire document is when it talks about students learning how to collect data for research projects. So why do I support these specific standards? I support these standards because of all the sets of standards I have read and researched, and there are many I have. These, I feel, are the best standards for the students of Arizona. I support these standards because as a school board member, as a math tutor, and as a mother, as I read them, I find myself nodding my head and saying, yes, these are essential skills for our students to need and understand. And
Thank
I
you.
support them because our local
you.
business owners have said the same.
Mr. Walker?
I stand in opposition to Common Core by that name or any other name. And the reason I do that is because I don't want the federal government involved in anything that we do at the local level. I believe that we elect school board members to make decisions about high standards or curriculum activities without Big Brother telling us what to do. People say, well, there are no strings attached now. But I'm going to tell you, if we take money from them, if there are no strings now, there will be when it comes to renew requests for more financial support to ensure them. Now, I know from experience, as having been a member of the Community College Governing Board in Maricopa County, that there's an effort in mind to create such an environment that young people have to comply with certain standards that go beyond academics. And I overheard one of the members former member as an undersecretary of the United Nations during a UN, mock UN debate, saying to one of our other board members, we're never going to be able to make a difference in the United States till we can get to the minds of your young children. And that was a member of the United Nations saying that in the Phoenix or Tempe, Arizona area at a mock United Nations meeting that I was in a position to attend part of. I am in opposition to anyone controlling our education process other than the parents and the teachers that we hire to do it. Remembering that the teachers are our employees and that the school board members are our representatives to dictate to those teachers what they can and can't do.
Thank you. And Mr. Bowers.
Thank you very much. And like others, this is a very important topic. And rather than approach it from the 30,000-foot level of what I think about the standards, and I echo the sentiments of others on this panel, I'd like to get at the trench level, because that's where I work, at the East Valley Institute of Technology. Teachers, as I have spoken to them about their profession, feel that they are always at the end of the next experiment, that there is a ongoing dissatisfaction with their work. Most teachers work very hard at their craft and their profession. They love the children. They enjoy their success. They're very involved in that success, and it empowers them. Now we have another yo-yo. The No Child Left Behind, the Reach for the Top, the STEM, a series of however we may discuss them back through time, but flavors of the month in education that were imposed upon them. Now it's another round of in-service, more time demands on them, more paperwork on them, more filings, more teach to the test so that we can make them reach the standards. And it is demoralizing. And so for those teachers out there, I'd like you to know that there's at least one candidate who's feeling your pain because he's among you and works with those same students. We know that students can achieve. They do need high standards. Nobody's saying, which is the typical tactic, oh, if you're not for Common Core, you're against high standards. Nobody's for low standards. But there are ways to reach it without experimenting on our children yet once again. I want to trust our teachers. I want to give more resources and trust into the classroom, away from experimenters, and to notice the great things our children are doing. Thank you.
Thank you. Next question for Mr. Olson. We'll start with you. What is the most serious challenge facing Arizona?
Excellent question. You know, if you would have asked me maybe 6 months ago, my response would have been different. But I think given the failed policies of the administration in Washington, the greatest challenge facing Arizona right now is the challenge of our unsecured borders. This has absolutely been a humanitarian crisis at the border. And it has demonstrated that the administration needs to get in control of the rule of law. They've ignored the rule of law, and they have invited this humanitarian crisis. We need to change the immigration policies that we have in our country. What we have right now is a system that entices not only adults, but now children, parents to send their children on a dangerous journey to come into our country illegally without respect for the rule of law. That is a humanitarian crisis that we've created. We've created this by enticing them through our failed policies, and it needs to change. That is the biggest challenge that we have. We actually reduced illegal immigration in Arizona. And because of that, now the administration is transferring the illegal immigrants from other states to and require Arizona to shoulder a greater burden of the costs associated with illegal immigration. So the failed policies of the Obama administration are the biggest challenge that we face as a state in Arizona.
Thank you. Ms. Udall?
He stole my answer. So I'm going to agree with him on the immigration issue. I feel like it's the biggest issue facing us at this time. Since he already gave a very eloquent answer on that, I'm going to talk a little bit about another issue I think that faces us is that we have leaders that tend to do knee-jerk reactions, that we have a situation where there's always a crisis, and we're always talking about the current crisis. And we have a lack of leadership that is looking forward to 5 and 10 and 15 and 20 years ahead at what we want Arizona and our communities to look like and what we want for our children and grandchildren. And I think that that is one of the things that is really lacking in our legislature, and one of the things that I can help bring to that body. I feel like we need to be looking forward and making plans and laying the groundwork for the future, and doing so as well as creatively solving the problems that we face today, such as immigration, such as education, and different issues that we face. But that we need to be looking forward with vision and with certainty that we can provide the opportunities that our children need.
Thank you. Mr. Walker?
The hot button issue today is what Mr. Olson talked about briefly. I strongly believe that we need to do something about the influx of young people coming to this country. I know that unaccompanied by their parents, of course. I know that it's been said by senior people in this administration that if you come here as a young person, we owe you something. It's been not directly stated that way, but implied that way, and we will take care of you. We can't take care of the world, but we can teach them how to take care of themselves. That's the reason I'm so strongly in favor of education. The trouble is, governments are a force that we have to contend with. And we don't need an influx of people into this country from any method by this standard to ask for something that we can't give them. We need to turn them around and send them home and let them know that we love them, that we care about them, but we can't take care of them. That's their responsibility to learn how to do it. No one took care of the young people who came over here and started this nation. They took care of themselves. They pulled themselves up by their own bootstraps, and they created the most vast industrial complex in the history of the human race. And any nation can do that at some level. We united to do it. They can unite to do it. All of us together are a lot smarter than any one of us. And I believe in the United States of America. And I really appreciate everything that we've accomplished here, and I want to protect that. I want to make sure that the people of the United States are able to receive the fruits of their labor, not have to have those piecemeal handed out to people.
Thank you. Mr. Bowers?
As others have said, the current crisis along the border garners and grabs and forces our attention there. It will pass in some fashion. It will either get worse or it will get better, depending on how well we try to manage a problem that's being forced upon us. I agree wholeheartedly with Mr. Olson. But when that crisis ebbs or increases, other problems are also pressing on us. But I'd like to ask you all, you as citizens, why is it that when you elect people to govern, that those people feel that they need to regulate, that they need to govern you, rather than to recognize your inherent abilities to resolve problems if given the tools, the capacity, and the trust to do so? We look too much at a governing institution, both to solve the problem and to blame if it doesn't go the way we particularly may wish it to. So, as the legislator, my hope is that we will, A, establish strong principles of how we govern and whom we have to govern, and make that as minimal as possible. Live the principles ourselves, and then trust the citizens of the state to use those principles in governing their families and their businesses and their lives. I trust you. I also expect of you a certain level of deportment, and you should expect the same of me. So as crises come and go, as we have all seen them, and in my a little more mature years than some of the others on the panel, we've seen those come and go. They will continue to. But that bottom line resiliency of Arizona citizens, to, when trusted, to pick up the ball and resolve problems working together, that's, I think, an underpinning of good government that we need to see in our elected representatives. Thank you.
Thank you. And Ms. Dawson?
Well, it seems like Mr. Bowers and Mr. Olson were saying, we are reacting to a crisis. There's always a crisis. We are running to be state representatives of the state of Arizona. I think one of the biggest things that we can do as a state representatives is to actually defend and fight for the rights of our state. our federal government right now seems to be broken. And if we keep relying and reacting to everything that they are doing, right or wrong, it actually just puts us constantly in a crisis mode as a state. I believe that as the leadership of the state should be to actually defend and protect the rights of the state, whether we have to take it upon ourselves to actually protect and secure our borders, because after all, we are the ones that have to live with it. And as a legal immigrant to this state, and having come and being separated from my parents before I immigrated to this country, I can tell you that there is a lot of people like me as children that are waiting for their turn to come here legally. So that is something that we need to take into effect when we are looking at this crisis. Everybody's talking about a humanitarian crisis. It's a humanitarian crisis that has been made up by our government. We have actually allowed this to get to this point. So as a candidate for state representative, my goal would be to actually protect the rights to our state, so we are not constantly defending ourselves from the crisis that the federal government has created for us. So that would be my priority in that sense.
Thank you. At this time, each of the candidates will have the opportunity to ask a question of their opponent. Before the debate, each candidate drew the name of another candidate and will have the opportunity to ask that question now. The first question is from Mr. Walker to Ms. Udall.
Ms. Udall, why do you continue to use high standards that we all believe in by a variety of methods to avoid stating your support for what we all know as Common Core?
I believe I made it pretty clear that I do support the Common Core standards. I do support high standards, and I call them high standards because I believe that they are higher and have spent quite a bit of time researching and looking through them and comparing them to our previous standards, comparing them to other standards. So I call them high standards. I call them Common Core. I call them the Arizona College and Career Ready standards. I call them our new standards. By any name, I want the standards that are better, best, and most appropriate for our children. And in researching and comparing and contrasting, I feel like these are the best standards for the children of Arizona.
Thank you. Ms. Udall, your question for Mr. Olson.
Representative Olson, recently the legislature lost a court decision regarding inflationary funding for K-12 education. How do you propose, or what do you propose the legislature do about that court decision?
Thank you. That's a great question. Thank you for that. You know, this actually brings up an interesting debate, and it's a question about whether or means or in statute or whether or means and. And this started with Governor Napolitano when she was then the Attorney General. She said, no, the legislature and the people, when they passed Proposition 301 at the ballot, passed a statute that says or, but I think that or in this case means and. And so in reality, I think that the court got it wrong. The court did require us to do something that is more than is required under the statute. And so the court overstepped its jurisdiction and is then stepping into the role of an appropriator. Now, as I mentioned, the most important decision that you all elect us to make when we go down to the state legislature is how we're going to appropriate your tax dollars. And that is a decision for the elected representatives of the people. That's not a decision for the court to make. The court calls balls and strikes. They don't appropriate your tax dollars. So what do I think that we should do at this time? I think that the state will continue to appeal that decision because the court did get it wrong in this instance. And what we will do as a state, as the representatives of the people, is we will continue to address the priorities of the people. As I mentioned already, we've increased funding for K-12 education by over $200 million with this budget that we passed this last year. And we will continue to address the needs and the priorities of the state through the elected representatives of the people.
Thank you. And Mr. Olson, your question for Mr. Bowers?
Absolutely. Thank you. Rusty, I got you a softball, so you can thank me later. Mr. Bowers, what do you consider your greatest accomplishment from your time serving in the legislature?
Thank you for that. And I, frankly, there's a presumption there that I did anything. And don't misconstrue how I just answered. No one does anything alone at the legislature. And if there was an ability, Representative Olson, that I hope that I used and that I will indeed use again, is to use any talent or capacity that I have, that I've been blessed with, to try to put good, sound, common sense, educated thought and effort into resolving the problems that both are assigned to me or that I bring in bill form to the legislature. We resolved, and I was blessed to be the team lead on the Growing Smarter initiative for our land use, huge land use resolution, for underground storage tank reform, for Superfund reform. My arena as the environment chairman in the House obviously was the environment, and we made very common sense changes to a lot of major legislation. In the Senate, of course, it was the budget, again, bringing people together, and I have seen a little lack of that recently. It's been more of a forced situation. But, so if there was an accomplishment, it was the ability to see across the chessboard who has the talents and the abilities that we can focus on certain problems and challenges, get them working on it, get everybody involved that can appropriately then bring a proposal to the body and carry it on to a broadly supported resolution. And there's a long list, and I'd invite folks to look at my record and see. And as you have done in the past, thank you.
Thank you. Ms. Dawson, your question for Mr. Walker.
Thank you. Mr. Walker, as a freshman, if elected, how would you build a coalition to be effective during the session?
That would be a really good question. No one, as Mr. Bowers indicated, does anything alone. And it takes a coalition of people who have like minds to come to any kind of a conclusion about what they think that the people who send them there to represent them want. The only thing that I can do is tell them what I believe that you all, as the residents in LD25, want me to do. And if they agree with it, then there will be people who will become magnetized by that and will come into circulation around me, and we'll get things done. And that's about as simple and straightforward as it can be, is going down to a building where people work together to accomplish goals and working with them to accomplish the goals that we all want accomplished. And so just be who you are, do what you think is the right thing to do, and people will either accept it or they'll reject it. And I'm not going down there to win a popularity contest. I'm going down there to represent the people of LD25. And that's what I'm going to do, is I'm going to represent your needs, and I'm going to do what you want me to do. And that's the reason I put my cell phone number on the front of all of my palm cards that I've been handing out. That is so that you can call me and talk to me directly and tell me what you want to be done so that I can listen to it and try to get 31 other people to agree with that. And that's exactly what has to happen, is 31 people have to agree before you can get anything accomplished in an organization like the state legislature with the representation that we have available. Thank you.
Thank you. And finally, Mr. Bowers, your question for Ms. Dawson.
And this may also be seen as a softball, but I think it underlines the effectiveness of any legislator. And that is, Ms. Dawson, as you contemplate service, what would be the principles that you feel should be elevated and seen kind of as the governing constitution, if there is, among members of the House that you would like to promote that would help us to resolve problems as amicably as possible, but if we're not able to do that, to resolve problems as broadly and as fairly as possible?
Thank you. It would be the same principles that I use for everything. I was taught since a child to have core values, to believe in doing the right thing. And doing the right thing doesn't matter whether it's the popular thing or the unpopular thing. So I would rule myself, and as if elected to represent, I would actually encourage my seatmates and the State House to actually do no harm. get out of the way and do the right thing for the state, whether it's popular or unpopular, and actually listen to all sides of the issue. This is what I've always done. I've always tried to listen to both sides of the issue so I can make an educated guess to everything that I do, whether it's in business, whether it's in life, whether it's in the way I hire, in the way I actually have had to fire people. It's not always the most popular thing to do, but if it is the right thing to do for the right reasons, that's how I would actually see it. I would actually follow my core values that have guided me since I was a child, that was infunded to me by my parents, and that's how I live my life, and that's how I would serve.
Thank you.
Thank you. The first closing statement will be given by Mr. Walker. You have 2 minutes.
I want to try to get 31 other people to agree with me that the people of the state of Arizona want a sunset clause on their constitution that requires every law in the state of Arizona to be reviewed periodically to make sure that it's still something that applies to their lives. If it doesn't apply to their lives, then it's not voted back into existence. It goes away, and the infrastructures below it go away, and we save money. And that is extremely important in this economy, is to save money and not spend it uselessly on things that don't need to be spent on. I do want the federal land that, other than the Indian reservations, the 42% of the state, to be controlled by the state. It was promised to the state of Arizona in 1912, when Arizona became a state, that the boundaries would be respected and they would be the state of Arizona. And I don't think that's a promise that's been honored. If you look at a map of the United States where federal land is controlled by the federal government, you'll see that everything from the upslope of the Rocky Mountains west to the Pacific Ocean is mostly federal land. Why is that true? Why does it have to be true? Why can't the people of this state and every other western state be allowed to profit from their own property instead of the money being collected by the federal government being sent to a black hole in Washington, D.C., where we'll never see the light of day again, or if we have to jump through federal hoops to get our money back? It's our money. We deserve it. We need to keep it. It belongs to education and to industry in the state of Arizona, and that's where it needs to be. And we need to do that for the posterity of the people of the state of Arizona. We need to do it for the future of the nation. We are the spearhead in the United States. Right now, this state is the spearhead for a great deal of really good things that have happened, and we need to keep that spearhead moving. Thank you.
Thank you. Ms. Udall.
Thank you. In closing, I hope that you recognize that I'm passionate about Mesa and Arizona. It's my home, and I hope it will always be my home. I hope to someday see my children choose to stay here and raise their children here. As a legislator, you can expect me to be thoughtful and a good listener. I love the example of the recently deceased Stan Turley. When asked what he considered as he considered bills, he said that he first thought about whether or not it was good for families. Was it right and moral, and did it help families? Second, is it good for the people that he represented, for his district? Third, was it good for the state of Arizona? And fourth, is it good for the Republican Party? That's the kind of legislator I want to be. Those are the kind of questions I would ask about any bill presented to me. What is good and right for families? That is our priority, to make sure that Mesa and Arizona remains a family-friendly place where you can raise a family, start a business, continue a business, thrive in business, without so much obstruction and regulation from the federal government. And that is the vision I have for Arizona going forward. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Olson.
Well, thank you again for this forum and for this opportunity to address Mesa voters and to meet together with these fine candidates and to share this stage and this opportunity to exchange ideas. And this is an important opportunity that we have as Americans. This is something that we all should hold very, very dear. That every 2 years we have this opportunity to participate in our government. We have the option to select who's going to represent us at the local level, at the legislature, and at the federal level. And this is something that is entirely at my core. This is why I became involved in elected government. When I first came of age and I learned that a large portion of my paycheck when I took a summer job in high school was being collected for entitlement programs that I would likely not benefit from because our elected officials had not been responsible with our tax dollars. That bothered me. That offended me. And I made a promise that when I would go down to the legislature, that I would be fiscally responsible with your tax dollars. So that those decisions that we saw in 2005, 6, and 7, and 8, when budgets were growing by more than double the rate of population growth and inflation, and spending us into a fiscal crisis would not happen again, so that you would not have to be concerned about your tax dollars and be concerned that the state was spending itself into bankruptcy. You know, I've really enjoyed the opportunity to represent Mesa, to represent you in the state legislature. You know, I think that I've brought a civil tone to the legislature. I approach each decision very methodically, and I approach each of my interlocutors in a civil manner. And I also evaluate every bill that comes before me and make sure that I make the decision that is right for Arizona. I've been a leader on fiscal issues, a leader on the pro-life movement. I've been endorsed by the Arizona Right to Life, endorsed by pro-business organizations because we've created jobs for Arizona.
Thank you. Ms. Dawson?
Well, thank you for holding this forum. Thank you for the rest of you to actually take time of your day to actually be here. We're all very busy during the campaign season. At the same time, it is very important to actually be together and get to hear the candidates. LD25 has been blessed with very good representation up to this point. And the fact that we have 5 people running to be your candidates from the Republican Party actually shows that we have great leadership in the district. And why do I want to be one of your 2 representatives? It's because I have shown leadership. I was the intern chairwoman of LD25 where we combined from 18 and 19. And I remember being told before the night that I was elected as their chairwoman was, you will never get this district to work together. Well, we managed to do that. We passed bylaws that corresponded to the district, to the Republican Party. We actually worked together in a primary, which was a tough primary for everybody, and then we worked together on the general. And within my professional life, I have always been a leader in the front of my professional association. I was one of the youngest presidents elected to the National Association of Insurance and Financial Advisors for the state. And I've spent the last 7 years representing my clients and my agents at the state capitol. I've been their head advocate at the capitol for the last 7 years. So I will not be going as a freshman, not knowing what it's like to actually do business as a legislator. I've spent the last 7 years there. I might not have the experience of actually sitting in the side of the legislators, but at least I know how the system works. So I hope that you can vote for me as one of your 2 representatives to represent you at the State House of Representative Heidi Dawson. So please, I hope I earn your support.
Thank you. And Mr. Bowers?
Well, thank you all for, again, giving us this privilege, as others have said. Fame is a vapor, riches take wing, popularity is an accident. Only one thing endures, character. And that was a favorite of Teddy Roosevelt. Really, tonight, you can be satisfied or you can be complimentary with a canned answer or a little box that you can check off, but the franchise that we all hold, I hope, is held by you as citizens and us as your fellow citizens based on the principles of character, because those are the principles that will govern our ability, whomever you choose, to resolve those appropriate problems that we face as legislators. Some of those problems are not appropriate to us. They should be shouldered by you. Others are shouldered by other jurisdictions. So please, exercise more than just a box check. Try to find out more about our character, because that will be critical. I am pro-life. I am pro-family. I am pro-business. I've likewise been endorsed by NFIB and the small business folks and supported by fire and police. But those checks, if you know me, you will know how I react and how I've reacted in the past. I try to get people to work together if I can. I use every ability to get that to happen. We have been very, very successful. We left the state in good hands when I stepped out for a season. And now, like the old bull elephant trying to come back and get the rogue young kids back in line, I've thrown myself back in, and I hope that you see some value in that experience matters, and that experience can help be a valuable part in this resolution in our future. Thank you so much.
Thank you. We thank you so much for participating in our forum this evening. And we thank all of you who took the time to come out and inform yourselves before voting. We encourage you to find out more about clean elections and the candidates running for office by visiting www.azcleanelections.gov. A video of this debate, as well as other clean elections debates, will be posted on that site within 72 hours of a scheduled debate. Thank you all for coming tonight.